The entire history of the Forbidden City. 26 minutes. Imagine an ultra-smooth drone flying high in the sky, dipping down over the sea of golden roofs that sit in the center of Beijing. The camera moves lower and lower, zooming right into a close-up of the deep, blood-red palace walls. If you pass through the giant Meridian Gate of Beijing today, you are walking on the exact same stone pathways where terrifying execution decrees were read out loud to thousands of people who were down on their knees. If you reach out your hand and touch the smooth white marble railings of the Hall of Supreme Harmony, you are touching a line that people once believed was the exact center of the entire universe. This is a massive fortress that was built to last for eternity, yet it nearly burned down to a pile of ashes just a few months after it was finished. Powerful emperors have ruled over 300 million souls from these very courtyards, but weak tyrants have also been trapped like prisoners inside them. Foreign invaders have broken in and stolen its treasures. Secret concubines have poisoned their rivals within its dark shadows. A desperate king even ended his own life and his family dynasty right on its doorstep. Yet, through 5 long centuries of fire, war, and blood, this palace has somehow survived. What you are about to see is a true masterpiece of empire building, dark secrets, and brilliant design. By using advanced visual restorations and rare historical journals, we are opening heavy wooden doors that were once completely forbidden to look through, back when stepping inside was punished by death. This is the entire history of the Forbidden City. 26 minutes, 600 years. Let us begin at the very beginning. The story truly begins in the year 1406. A fierce and ruthless ruler named the Yongle Emperor had just stolen the Chinese throne by fighting a bloody civil war against his own nephew. He decided he could no longer stay in the old capital city of Nanjing, where his enemies still hid in the shadows. He wanted to move his entire government hundreds of miles north to the ancient city of Beijing. This choice of geography was incredibly strategic. Beijing sat right at the edge of the empire, positioned perfectly beneath the giant, rolling northern hills and the cold Eurasian steppes. For centuries, nomadic Mongol horse warriors had swept down from these plains to raid Chinese lands. By building a giant fortress right here, the emperor could use Beijing as a massive shield and military base to protect the rest of his kingdom from invasion. To turn this war-torn frontier into the center of the world, the emperor gathered a staggering workforce of over 1 million poor laborers and skilled craftsmen. The engineering impact was unmatched in history. Teams of men traveled deep into the dangerous, thick jungles of southwestern China to cut down rare, giant Phoebe Jinan trees. These logs were so heavy that they had to be dragged for thousands of miles across rivers and mountains, a journey that took years just to reach the building site. For the floors, workers dug up massive blocks of white marble from distant quarries. During the freezing winter months, engineers poured water along the roads to create miles of smooth, man-made ice sheets, allowing groups of men and horses to slide the 300-ton stones all the way to Beijing. But as the timber walls and heavy golden roofs rose above the city, the builders faced a terrifying problem. Beijing was located directly on top of a major fault line, making it a target for sudden, violent earthquakes that could easily bring the heavy wooden halls crashing down. This forced the ancient architects to invent a brilliant engineering secret. They created an interlocking wooden bracket system called dugong. Instead of using iron nails or sticky glue, which would snap or crack under heavy pressure, they carved the wooden beams to fit together perfectly like puzzle pieces. When a massive earthquake hit, these smart joints allowed the giant structures to sway back and forth, safely absorbing the shaking ground without dropping a single beam. Yet, despite this brilliant design, a strange mystery soon shook the palace, one that historians still debate to this day. Just a few months after the Forbidden City was officially completed, a sudden and terrifying event took place. In the spring of 1421, a massive storm rolled over Beijing, and lightning struck the 3 main ceremonial halls. Because the buildings were made of dry wood, they erupted into a sea of fire. The beautiful palaces, which had taken 15 years of human suffering and millions of gold pieces to construct, burned down to the ground in a single night. The emperor was so deeply shocked that he stepped down from his daily duties and begged his officials for answers. Many people believe that heaven itself was angry at the emperor for stealing the throne and had cursed the project. Some historians believe it was just a tragic natural disaster, while others suspect disgruntled workers or political enemies started the fires on purpose to ruin the tyrant. To this day, the real cause of the sudden destruction of the emperor's dream remains lost to history. As the smoke finally cleared from the blackened ruins, the Yongle Emperor refused to let the fire god destroy his grand vision. He ordered his armies of laborers to rebuild the massive halls exactly as they were before, cementing his place as one of the most powerful and legendary figures in all of world history. By the time the city was fully restored, this single ruler sat upon the magnificent dragon throne as the absolute master of the largest and wealthiest empire on Earth. The Forbidden City was no longer just a palace. It had become the glowing center of global power, a place where the fates of millions of people across Asia were decided with a single stroke of the emperor's brush. From deep within these red walls, the Yongle Emperor made a massive historical decision that altered the course of wider civilization forever. He looked beyond the borders of China and commanded his close advisor, a brilliant Muslim admiral named Zheng He, to build the largest maritime fleet the world had ever seen. From the inner courtyards of the Forbidden City, royal orders were sent out to construct hundreds of massive treasure ships, some longer than football fields. These fleets set sail from China to explore the Indian Ocean, reaching the shores of India, the Middle East, and the wild coasts of Africa. Because of the choices made inside this palace, the Forbidden City became the command center for a global trading network, bringing exotic animals, strange jewels, and foreign ambassadors from across the seas straight to the emperor's feet. You can still connect with this legendary golden age when you visit the palace today. Standing proudly in the very center of the complex is the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the grandest and most important monument still standing from that era. This massive wooden hall rests on top of 3 tiers of beautifully carved white marble, looking out over a courtyard that can hold up to 100,000 people. It was right here, on this exact spot, that foreign kings and distant messengers had to drop to their knees and perform the ultimate kowtow, pressing their foreheads to the stone floor 9 times just to show respect to the ruler of the world. This stunning building stands today as a physical reminder of the time when the Forbidden City was the undisputed heart of global wealth and power. The Golden Age of Isolation. But this great age of sailing across the world did not last forever. Following the sudden death of the Yongle Emperor, a massive cultural shift rolled through the red walls of the palace. The new rulers who took the throne made a shocking decision to halt all the treasure fleets and burn the naval records. They believed that looking outward brought too many dangerous foreign ideas and cost too much money. Instead of conquering the seas, the empire turned entirely inward, locking the giant wooden gates of the Forbidden City and cutting itself off from the rest of the world. The palace transformed from a noisy command center of global trade into a highly secluded, quiet sanctuary of high art, ancient rituals, and spiritual focus. This change brought about a major ideological shift within the imperial court. The emperors stopped focusing on military conquest and became deeply obsessed with Confucian traditions and Taoist mysticism. Every single action inside the palace, from the exact hour the emperor woke up to the specific color of the robes he wore, was strictly guided by ancient spiritual laws meant to keep cosmic balance. The Forbidden City became a living temple where the ruler spent his days praying to heaven, writing poetry, and practicing complex rituals to ensure good harvests for his people. The local servants, scholars, and artists adapted beautifully to this new lifestyle, turning their energy toward perfecting court etiquette, painting delicate silk scrolls, and studying ancient texts. This inward turn sparked a true golden age of learning and culture deep inside the palace grounds, keeping the flame of civilization burning bright while other parts of the world struggled through war and chaos. The Forbidden City became home to the finest library in the empire, where royal scholars spent decades collecting, copying, and organizing thousands of historical books and philosophical scrolls. Master craftsmen set up secret workshops inside the courtyards, spending their whole lives perfecting the art of making flawless porcelain vases, intricate jade carvings, and beautiful lacquer furniture. Even though the empire's borders were closed to the outside world, this period of peaceful isolation allowed arts, literature, and spiritual philosophy to reach a level of beauty and perfection that had never been seen before in history. Fall of Ming Rise of Manchu. This peaceful golden age of art and isolation was shattered in the beautiful spring of April 1644. Outside the palace walls, a giant rebel peasant army swarmed into the streets of Beijing, burning buildings and crashing through the outer city gates. Realizing that all hope was lost, the very last native Ming emperor, a broken man named Chongzhen, walked out of his private quarters. He climbed up Jingshan Hill, a high mound located right behind the northern palace wall, looked down at his burning capital one last time, and hanged himself from a tree. The Ming dynasty had collapsed in blood and fire. But the real surprise came just a few weeks later. A fiercely aggressive army of nomadic horse warriors called the Manchus swept down from the far northeast. They crushed the rebels, marched victoriously through the palace gates, and seized the dragon throne for themselves, establishing a brand new ruling family known as the Qing dynasty. While this sudden invasion was terrifying and ominous, the new Manchu rulers made a surprising choice that changed history. Instead of reducing the Forbidden City to a pile of rubble out of anger, they pivoted immediately to rebuilding, colonization, and commerce. The invaders realized that if they wanted to rule over 300 million Chinese citizens, they needed to respect the ancient palace. They chose to preserve the magnificent timber halls, but they added their own unique touch to the architecture. They systematically changed the names of the major buildings to represent peace and harmony between the two different cultures. They also launched new trading networks that brought wealth flooding back into Beijing, making the palace the busy heart of a massive, multi-ethnic marketplace that stretched all the way to Central Asia. You can still see hard, physical proof of this incredible cultural mix when you walk through the Forbidden City today. If you look up at the heavy wooden signboards hanging above the palace doors, you will see something truly fascinating. Every single sign is written in two entirely different languages side by side. On one side is traditional Chinese characters, and on the other side is the unique, vertical script of the Manchu invaders. This lasting proof shows how the conquerors integrated their daily life and language directly into the heart of the city. Furthermore, historians have found remnants of specialized royal workshops from this era near the outer gates, where Manchu and Chinese craftsmen worked side by side to create weapons, clothing, and global trade goods. The palace stands today as proof that the invaders did not just destroy history, they rebuilt it to last for centuries to come. The Boxer Nightmare. As the years rolled on into the 19th century, the golden light of peace faded, and the Forbidden City shrank into a dark and terrifying pressure cooker. The palace was no longer a place of high art. Instead, it became a gilded cage ruled by fear, systemic cruelty, and greedy officials. The ultimate low point of this era came with the rise of a ruthless ruler, the Empress Dowager Cixi. She was a deeply ambitious woman who started as a low-ranking concubine, but managed to seize total control of the empire. She locked the young, rightful emperor away in a lonely island palace within the royal grounds, and ruled with an iron fist from behind a secret silk screen. Under her harsh and stubborn rule, the outside nation began to fracture, and the desperate, starving people of China finally rose up in a massive, violent rebellion known as the Boxer Uprising. The retaliation that followed was absolutely apocalyptic, bringing a devastating nightmare straight to the sacred palace gates. In the hot summer of 1900, a massive international army made up of 8 foreign nations marched into Beijing to crush the rebels and punish the royal court. The Empress Dowager panicked and fled the city in disguise, leaving the Grand Palace completely defenseless. For the first time in 600 years, foreign military forces smashed through the sacred Meridian Gate. Soldiers ran wild through the private courtyards, using bayonets to scrape the real gold leaf off the giant bronze water vats. They tore down priceless silk curtains, shattered ancient porcelain, and turned the holy ceremonial halls into messy military barracks and dining rooms. It was a heartbreaking massacre of culture and human dignity, leaving a permanent historical stain on the legacy of the Qing dynasty. Yet, even after this deep humiliation and terrible tragedy, the Forbidden City refused to die. The foreign armies eventually packed up their weapons and left, and the royal family crept back into their looted home. The broken servants and tired craftsmen immediately went to work, sweeping away the broken glass, washing the stained marble floors, and patching up the damaged red walls. The empire was severely weakened and deeply in debt, but the physical heart of China's heritage had somehow survived the dark storm. With the fires put out and the gates closed once more, the resilient old palace began the slow, painful process of recovery, preparing itself for a rapidly changing modern world that it could no longer ignore. Even though the palace had been deeply shaken by foreign invaders, the Forbidden City quickly rose back into a period of staggering wealth and economic glory. It became the ultimate symbol of a massive trading network that brought riches from every corner of the earth. Money flooded into the imperial court through specialized royal industries, such as the production of flawless silk, rare jade carving, and secret porcelain formulas that foreigners paid fortunes to buy. High-priced taxes from hundreds of millions of citizens across China were sent directly into the palace vaults. The grand courtyards hummed with the busy footsteps of wealthy merchants, tax collectors, and powerful officials who kept the entire empire's economy running from inside these red walls. On the outside, the Forbidden City looked like a mountain of endless gold, operating on a level of extreme luxury that most normal people could only dream of seeing. But this massive macro wealth stood in sharp contrast to a deeply tragic and personal human drama happening right behind the scenes. While the palace was swimming in riches, the actual people living inside were trapped in a period of intense political persecution, where a single wrong word could get a person killed. To understand this hidden world of fear and courage, we have to look closely at a highly personal, emotional story of an individual's immense sacrifice. This was the tragic life of a young, beautiful woman known to history as Consort Zheng, who was also called the Pearl Concubine. She was the favorite wife of the young Yongle Emperor, the rightful ruler whom the ruthless Empress Dowager Zheng had locked away. Unlike the greedy courtiers who only cared about money and power, the Pearl Concubine possessed incredible bravery and a modern mind. She dared to openly support her husband's secret plans to modernize China, give freedom to the poor people, and stop the corruption that was draining the country's wealth. Because she stood up for what was right, she became a target of the Empress Dowager's terrifying anger. The cruel older woman stripped the young concubine of her beautiful silk robes, threw her into a tiny, dark prison cell at the edge of the palace, and forbade anyone from speaking to her. For years, while the rest of the court enjoyed grand feasts and expensive jewels, the Pearl Concubine sat alone in the dark, surviving on tiny scraps of food. In the year 1900, just before the foreign armies stormed the city, the Empress Dowager ordered that the brave young woman be dragged out of her cell. Standing by a small stone well in a quiet courtyard, the old tyrant ordered her guards to throw the screaming concubine down the dark hole, drowning her in the cold water below. This heart-wrenching sacrifice proved that underneath all the gold and economic glory, the Forbidden City was a place where true courage often paid the ultimate price. The arrival of the 20th century brought a roaring industrial explosion that finally forced the ancient world of the Forbidden City to crash into the modern age. The catalyst of this massive change was the sudden arrival of rumbling steel railways, noisy telegraph lines, and modern factories that sprouted up all around the ancient walls of Beijing. For centuries, the palace had been completely isolated from the outside world, but now, chugging steam trains connected the capital to distant oceans and industrial cities in just a few short hours. This rapid technological revolution completely shattered the quiet, old ways of life. Suddenly, the ancient fortress found itself surrounded by a new world of electricity, mass production, and fast-moving machinery that made the traditional lifestyle of the imperial court look like a distant memory from the past. During this wild time of change, a single powerful titan emerged to completely transform the layout of the city and the fate of the palace itself. This man was a brilliant and ambitious military general named Yuan Shikai. He was a master of modern warfare who controlled China's most powerful, modern army, which was trained with Western weapons and industrial technology. When the old Qing dynasty finally collapsed, this military titan stepped into the spotlight and took control of the government. He did not want to live like the old emperors, but he used his massive power to change how the palace grounds were used. He paved new roads, brought modern security into the courtyards, and physically cut off the very last emperor from the front half of the complex, changing the ancient fortress from a royal home into a modern political center. This massive shift led straight to a beautiful cultural pivot, changing the Forbidden City from a mysterious place that makes history into a grand sanctuary that preserves history. In the year 1925, the new democratic government made a historic decision to officially open the giant wooden gates to the public for the very first time, creating the world-famous Palace Museum. Normal citizens, poor farmers, and curious foreign tourists could now walk on the sacred stone pathways where only kings once stood. The birth of tourism completely transformed the palace. Instead of being an unapproachable fortress where secret laws were made, the beautiful timber halls became a giant museum dedicated to protecting China's ancient art, porcelain, and cultural treasures for future generations to study and enjoy.